My message is going to reach every silver stacker. Now, with that out of the way, I have some big news to share. Come with me as I explore. Everything in this room, including the silver, has a purpose. This is related to the message I wish to convey regarding silver. Regardless of how long you've been stacking, it's wise to familiarize yourself with silver's historical trends and potential future developments. Basically, what I'm going to tell you is a silver reality check and some basics. Having said that, I am still optimistic about silver's future. Actually, I wouldn't be shocked if silver reached $50 before the year ends. Still, in order to keep our expectations in check regarding silver, we need to examine its historical performance, its essential characteristics, and the factors influencing its price at the moment. It's fantastic to see new physical silver accumulators, and I've noticed a lot of new stackers that have joined up here recently, so I'm doing this movie mainly for them. However, this is also true for long-term stackers who have grown weary of the market due to the static periods in silver's history. By the end of this movie, I hope you will have gained some encouragement, and the one piece of advice I can give you is to keep your silver. So, stay with me. This silver has been in my possession for an extremely long period. In fact, I came close to selling it once. For some reason, I've never before discussed the period of my life when I was dealing with silver and seriously considered whether I was insane for clinging to all of this stuff. Looking at the price is, in my opinion, the most important thing to do to comprehend the current state of silver. Though I've been harping on the importance of looking beyond silver's price, the most important thing is having a savings vehicle that isn't part of the system from which we are cut off. Put another way, we don't use dollars to quantify our wealth, but instead use ounces. Yes, I understand. Just so you know, the value proposition of a dollar in the early 1990s was very different from what it is today. Without a doubt, it has been declining continuously since then. That is inflation, and it is still a factor contributing to the current increase in silver prices. In 2025, we have been witnessing an incredible ride. For those of you who are new, I must warn you that this is not your typical ride. Even though silver is acting like an investment right now, we should not consider it as such, even though you have witnessed a tremendous return on your investment. This is the first and most important argument I want to make to you, and it applies whether you've been stacking this year or last, but also in the long run, because it's hard to argue that silver has failed to protect your wealth. Buying it at its high in 1980 or 2011 would have put you squarely in the red, to name a couple of instances. You will not be making a profit from your silver investment, as I have already mentioned in my previous videos. My message to you is to stay in silver for the long haul. If you've been stacking for a while and you're thinking, hey, I'm going to sell some of the silver I've had and I'm done. After losing a lot of money in the past, you might be tempted to cash out, but I urge you not to. If you've owned silver for a while, I think you should hold on to it. The silver I own here was purchased during a period when its price hovered around $4 to $5 per ounce. This price range persisted far into the 1990s and into the early 2000s. Using this silver eagle as an example, it has remained relatively unchanged since around 1990. A silver eagle from 1990. Since then, most of you have witnessed my weathered rendition of it. The price of silver has risen substantially, but it took a long time for this to happen, and I recall owning it since it was brand new. That is an example of what would have been purchased and paid probably $8 or $9 for that coin. I kept it for a decade, and it accomplished very little throughout that time. Silver, for example, was still trading at about $5 after 9/11. Quite bizarre, but it is just what transpired. That is the thing that we are examining. There you have it, folks. That was the real deal in the late 90s and early aughts. During that 10-year span, silver did nothing at all, and it actually lost ground when adjusted for inflation. Very annoying, to the point where I considered selling, but I ultimately opted to keep going. I figured, you know what? I bought this stuff. I still have it. Maybe it'll do okay someday in terms of price. And it did. The truth is that it all began in the years 2003 to 2004. It began to rise before the SLV was founded in 2006, so that's something. And then everything kicked off after that. Yes, I understand. We first noticed the SLV's meteoric rise in 2006, when the derivatives market was just getting off the ground. By 2007, its price had nearly doubled, and I was feeling pretty good about it. Since then, it has remained relatively stable. For the most part, it remained above $10. Around 2009, an exception occurred. We witnessed a rather sharp decline in value due to the financial crisis of 2008 to 2009. Temporarily, it fell below $10, but that was it. This is par for the course. It wasn't until the next major financial crisis in 2020 that we witnessed such a precipitous decline. Following COVID, we are aware of what transpired. During the anomalies in 1980 and 2011, the silver price spiked up dramatically and quickly, similar to what we're seeing now. However, there was a pullback in a consolidation period that lasted until about 2006. The price returned to its previous level after that. Throughout the years, there have been periods of relatively stable prices for silver. One notable spike occurred in the early 1980s, after inflation really took hold, but it quickly fell back down. Another spike occurred after the savings and loan crisis in 1987. Overall, the price of silver remained relatively stable until 2011. However, the most important thing to note is that the price decline after 2011 was not nearly as severe as the one after 1980. In other words, we had higher support through that period of time of the second level of great stagnancy in silver's price. And that was a period when this channel was formed. And by the way, this channel sponsored by Summit Metals. I want to thank them for being here, being a part of this channel. Next time you're in the market for buying or selling precious metals, check them out at summitmetals.com. Now, this period of great stagnancy that occurred from pretty much when silver really dropped down in about 2000 and end of 2013, really from July of 2013, it just kept falling. And then it kind of bottomed out here around the high $13, $14 range. Now we're talking actual dollars at the time when adjusted for inflation. This still looks fairly similar in terms of the price structure and how it has occurred. But we saw a very, very a strong level of support, well above that, the $10 period, $10 mark, well above a $12 during that period of time. And we never saw it fall below that price range. And so it's been an amazing ride, and we could have another one of those. But I believe that the movement in silver's price today, and this is important, folks, the movement. Silver's price today is different than in 2011 and in 2000 and in 1980. Even though the run-up to it is mirroring what we have seen in terms of the time scale. But what has changed, though, is gold has far outperformed, even when adjusted for inflation, silver. And that is what is part of what is pulling silver up, is gold. No question about that. But keep in mind that that is part of the fundamental drivers that are there with gold, are reflecting on silver. But there's also its industrial use, that silver. So fast forward here to 2025, we are now seeing silver rise up, in a sense, following gold, but staying up and rising up faster than gold. Now what we saw this past week is silver, narrowing the gap slightly, enough to be noticeable that we're seeing it outperform to where it's now almost an 80-1. Whereas the narrowing of gold-silver ratio in 2011 was about a 33 or 34 or for some time, even 32-1. And then in 1980, it was about 16-1. And so that's one of the reasons why this is different, which is why I think that this run-up, I think, is going to stick and maybe even go beyond $50, because when adjusted for inflation, well, silver has a long way to go, well under the triple digits for sure, from 1980, and certainly very close to that, and when adjusted for inflation in 2011. So the thing is, if we need to think long-term, and we need to prepare for a consolidation period, and a relatively long one too, but I think that consolidation and that pullback is going to be higher, and maybe even much higher than where it was in the previous period. You know, it's the old cup and handle thing. Well, the handle is it not? Is it much higher? And then the bow of that handle is much higher than what we saw with the bowl, the cup, the bottom of the cup from the previous. And that bottom of the cup is right around that decade that I've talked about, from 1990 to 2004 or somewhere thereabouts. So that's the message I'm going to send to you, is that a silver is going to do. We're going to have this bull run for a while, but sooner or later it's going to end. But the end is what we should look at. The end, I think, is it's going to be very good for silver stackers, in my view, as it consolidates back down. What that's going to look like in terms of price, well, I think it's probably going to be well above $30 an ounce, and maybe even $40 an ounce. Who knows? I think between the $30 and $40 range is what we could see next time for a while. But really, it's anybody's guess, to be honest, as to what could happen, because it is different. This time it really is. And that's not just a saying, but looking at what I've been tracking with the silver price for so long, it really is something that is in the air with the silver price now. That's different, especially given the fundamentals of supply-demand that we've been seeing over the past 5 years. Now we're in the 5th year of that, and there's no sign of that easing at all. In other words, there's going to be more demand for silver for all the uses out there, and that's not going to slow down. Now, I want to talk about a major announcement with the channel that you should be aware of. This channel recently got 100,000 subscribers, and I appreciate each and every one of you who have subscribed recently. But I also want to thank all of those who have been subscribed for a long time, over a decade. I appreciate each and every one of you for being a part of the community here in general, and a part of this channel specifically. And I hope you will stay subscribed, especially if you're new. I do daily videos and also talk about the fundamentals of gold and silver, try to encourage the community with silver stacking and gold, as well as other precious metals. Now I did make a promise that once I hit 100,000 subscribers, that I would show something unique that has never been seen by any human eyes outside of those who created the products, plural. And my eyes, no close family, no close friends have seen this. Nobody in my physical circle has seen what I'm about to share with you. And I wanted to kind of wait until it was, quote, official by YouTube that I reached 100,000 subscribers. There's something called channel verification, and I applied for this channel verification, and guess what? I got denied and said that they can't validate that. I was actually the actual person behind the channel from which I represent, and I was mind blown. I couldn't believe it. I got denied. I thought what is going on here? Well, it turns out that a typo in the application process, and which could have easily been researched on the YouTube side to find out that yes, I was real, was just a typo, and so I resubmitted again, and just now received this verification as I record this video. I just literally found out about this, so I'm actually verified now. So that's good. The other thing I want to do is I want to make sure it's completely official, and I'm going to wait until I get the actual the YouTube play button. And everybody probably knows that once you reach 100,000 subscribers, you get this quote, silver YouTube play button. It's actually a piece of plastic, but I'm going to show that as well and wait for that to get here. But I have not received the application for me to fill out to get that yet. And it may not actually happen. In other words, that reward is also dependent on other criterion factors that they have to take into account before I can get it. So now if I don't get the play button, I'll probably still show the what I'm going. But I want to make sure for sure. I figured it'd be a better video if I showed it along with that, because there was a promise that I made since I showed my full gold and gold stack video, I believe. So stay tuned for that. But the bigger message that I'm going to send with this video is what I talked about before, is that be prepared for whatever may come our way with silver's price, even if it goes down. And again, I'm not saying it's going to go down or consolidate anytime soon, but the consolidation period will come, folks, and we should be prepared for it and not be jaded or not be discouraged in any way, shape or form when that happens, because it will happen. So that's the message I want to send to you in this video. With that being said, I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment and subscribe. Translated by turboscribe.ai. If you want this message removed, you need to go to Unlimited.